Hey, Rifters, welcome to the show. Subscribe, rate, and review. We got a great show for you today. Couple dates. And November 10th through the 11th, I'll be at Mic Drop with uh, Paul Rodriguez in San Diego. Get your tickets at micdrop.com. And that's all I got on the books as of now. Today's guest, you've seen him on Comedy Central. He's a writer, comedian, author. You see him on Comedy Central. He's the host of the Jimmy Dore Show, and the great Jimmy Dore is going to be here via Zoom. My dog is now barking, which is not good. You guys know Boomer. Boomer has like major anxiety. So when he barks like that, it means somebody's coming over. It's been an interesting couple weeks. My grandma moved in, and I'm not a huge fan of my grandma, and it's just been causing a lot of situations at home. So I feel when the nurse comes over to take care of her, to check on her, and Boomer goes crazy like that, it's always in the most inappropriate times, like when I'm trying to do Reza riffs. Anyways, that's the dog life for you. Speaking of dog life, I saw Strays, and I don't usually plug out movies like that, but I thought that was pretty funny. Um, yeah, had Will Ferrell and Jamie Foxx. Gave me a chuckle. That's all I could say. Um, Anyways, guys, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to talk to Jimmy Dore. If you like the show, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Tell a friend. We're trying to get to 150 reviews. I think we're at 110 now, and it's so hard because like the reviews keep changing and disappearing and then changing. So yeah, if you could really help out the show, even if you don't like it, just write a review on how we can improve, because that's how you improve. I hope you do like it, and I hope you 5-star and write a great review. But I understand. Like comedy, podcasting could be considered subjective. So yeah, send me your feedback. I would really, really appreciate it. Might do like a little contest, like more reviews or something. You could get uh, something cool. I just gotta think of something cool. All right, guys, enjoy the show, and we'll be right back riffing with you with Jimmy Dore.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Hey,
Hey,
Jimmy.
hey Keith, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, good. How are you, pal?
Is this a video podcast or audio?
I just released audio, but it helps with my Asperger's with the video.
Got it, no problem.
Oh, awesome. I like your hat, by the way. The folks can't see it, but it's a cool hat.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I had a guy stop me in the airport yesterday and ask me what the brand was.
Oh, what brand is it?
It's called Carla Duvica, Carlu Duvica. And so, but anyway, yeah, I wear fedoras, and just because I'm so sick of people wearing baseball hats everywhere. Like it's like like even out to dinner, people wear fucking baseball hats. It's like, I'm just tired of people looking shitty all the time. It's just like,
Yeah,
does it bother you that you look like shit all the time? You look like you're doing laundry. That's what a baseball hat does. And
definitely.
it's a real. I was at dinner last night at this great Mediterranean place in Sherman Oaks, and there's a dude in there with a baseball hat on backwards, and it's just like it. What people don't realize is the reason why people get dressed up for special occasions is because it makes everyone feel better. When everyone looks good, it makes you feel better. When you're sitting there with a slob, it drags you down emotionally. And
Right.
I didn't realize that until it was 1999. I was doing cruise ship Holland America. And it was at the time, I don't know if it still is, at the time it was a higher end cruise ship. And they told me that I had to bring a suit for they do a formal night at dinner once a week, because it was a 5-day cruise or a 7-day cruise. And I
Yeah.
was like, all right. So I'm hanging out with the crew all week, and I see them in their crew clothes, and we're all just being regular on a cruise. And then it came for dinner on formal night, and all these women that I'd been hanging out with in their shorts and polos were now all of a sudden dressed up in these gowns, with these backless gowns, and their hair done. And I was just like, whoa, this is real. And I just noticed how it just made me feel different.
Yeah.
I felt different. I had a different mental, and you just kind of start to, it's almost like you're more respectful of everybody and everything. And so when I first moved to Los Angeles, I remember I got invited to a wedding by this girl or woman. And so I went to the wedding with her, and I would say 75% of the guys weren't wearing a suit coat. They were wearing like a polo shirt, and sometimes even worse. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember I was talking about it at a party, and who was the guy? There was this comedian who was really funny, and I was complaining about it, about like, how can you tell and I was complaining about people dressing shitty at this wedding. And I remember he said, Matt Weinhold, very funny guy, Matt Weinhold, one of my favorite comedians, actually.
All right.
And I haven't seen him in probably 15 years, but he is hilarious. Anyway, he said to me, yeah, I don't wear a suit when I go to a wedding either, Jimmy, because I feel more comfortable. And I go, yeah, well, it's not about you. It's about the people you're going to their wedding. You're honoring them. And that's why she's going to be dressed up in a nice dress, and he's going to be in a tuxedo. And that's because, and I go, it's not about you. I go, how can you tell the difference in the pictures? It was like, oh, somebody was on his way to a Dodgers game, and he stopped in at this wedding and took a picture. Or so was it laundry day when you went to the wedding? It was all that. And he disagreed with me. And then I saw him a few weeks later, and he told me, he goes, Jimmy, I thought about what you said, and I went out and I bought 2 suits. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. So anyway, that's a long answer to your not even asking me a question, but
Well, no,
that
it's a funny story, because he probably bought the suits, and then 10 years later, since you've seen him, he probably doesn't fit in the suits anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Okay.
But
So, but I missed, did you know Matt Weinhold?
no, no, no. I've never had the pleasure of meeting or performing with him. But
Um,
I love all comics, even comics like who I don't like, because I think comedy, there's a brotherhood. You know what I mean? Like, I could not like somebody, but still there's a brotherhood where it's like, okay, I still have respect for you as a comic. You know what I mean? So like,
yes, 100%. And I used to really feel proud about being part of the stand-up comedy community, especially different than sketch comedy, stand-up comedy. I think stand-up comics are much gutsier, and it's much more risky.
yeah,
So it's doing stand-up comedy is like walking a tightrope without a net. Doing sketch is like walking a tightrope with a net.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
And so
sketches, if it fails, other people fail with you.
with you, and then you can make and jokes to each other about how it's failing, and nobody has to take responsibility. And you can even blame the audience for their bad suggestions. I've seen sketch groups do that. So yeah, so I've always proud to be a member of the stand-up comedy community up until COVID.
Yeah.
And then when COVID happened, I don't know how to put it into words, but it hurt my heart. I don't want to be too dramatic, but it made me embarrassed for stand-up comedy, because the comedy, I don't know, maybe it was different in New York, but
Mhm.
I don't think so. But in Los Angeles, it was almost ubiquitous that comedians were shaming people for challenging the status quo and being skeptical of government and authority, and they would shame people for not following rules without question. The thing I like to point out is that I heard many comedians go on stage and tell people, please tell me you're not going to do your own research. And they shamed people for trying to get informed about experimental medical treatments that they were being forced to take by the most criminal, murderous MFers in the world, which is Big Pharma and the government. And we know the government is bought by Big Pharma, just like the corporate media. So they had those three things pounding propaganda into you, which were all lies, by the way. Turned out they were all lies.
Yeah.
Turns out the first thing is the virus wasn't even deadly. It's not that they lied about the death rate. They said the death rate was 3.5%. I could never get any validation on that. They would never. And now it turns out we know it's 0.5%, if that.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty much like the flu, and which you weren't allowed to say on YouTube, or else they would take your channel down if you said that. But it turns out it was exactly that. And it turns out that the average age of death from COVID was 82 years old. And the average age of life expectancy is 77. So the joke I make is if you get COVID, turns out you get 5 more years to live. And so, if I'm on my deathbed and the doctor says, what do you want? I go, I want you to give me COVID. I want 5 more years. So, but the sad thing was that comedians not only didn't question authority, they weren't skeptical. They didn't have a healthy skepticism, but they shamed people who did. Yeah. And that's the opposite of comedy. And if you're on stage shaming people for reading, because that's all that is. Comedians are supposed to, if you shame anybody, it's supposed to be shaming people for not wanting to get informed and for following rules without question. Comedians almost ubiquitously did the exact opposite during COVID, was they shamed people for wanting to get informed and not following rules without question. It's the exact opposite, basically for reading. And that's the bit I do in my act about, like, I woke up in the middle of a Bill Hicks bit, like, oh, looks like we got ourselves a Rita. Tell me, boy, what you reading for? And that's that. And, you see all the late night comedians, and Jimmy Kimmel wished the death on unvaccinated people. And it turns out the people who resisted the vaccine were the smart ones, because now we know that the unprecedented adverse events in 1977, they had the swine flu vaccine. 1 in 100,000 vaccines led to what they call an adverse event, which is a side effect. They pulled the vaccine. And then in 1999, there was another rotavirus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the adverse events was 1 in 10,000. And they pulled it. The adverse event for the COVID vaccine was 1 in 800, and they're still recommending it. And right now, the boosters, the 2 people who are in charge of the vaccine department at the FDA resigned over the booster program rolled out by the White House, because they said they were being pressured, undue pressure from the Biden White House. They weren't pressured by Trump. They were pressured by Biden, and they resigned. And you know what? No one knows that. You know why? Because Big Pharma bought the media, and they don't tell you that. And those people never get interviewed, and they don't get articles written about them. And they're called whistleblowers. So they blew the whistle on the boosters. And of course, it doesn't get covered in the corporate media, because the corporate media is funded by Pfizer and Big Pharma. And so it's and still to this day, those comedians still don't have one critical word to say about all the lies we were told about COVID. It wasn't just one lie, it was 1 million goddamn lies, starting with where the virus came from. Well, it turns out the virus came from the US government funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. They always knew that, and now we know through their private emails and freedom of information requests that they had to cover it up, because if they didn't cover it up, then they wouldn't get more funding. So the scientists lied, and now we know they lied, and we know that the virus came from the Wuhan lab, and it was because of Dr. Fauci funding gain of function research, which Barack Obama put a halt to, because when they were doing it, viruses kept escaping from the labs in the United States. So Barack Obama put an end to that. Dr. Fauci didn't stop him because he doesn't work for Barack Obama or the American people. He works for the military industrial complex. He's the head of the bioweapons for DARPA, and people don't know that either. That's why he's the most highest paid, or was the highest paid guy in government, makes more money than the president of the United States, Dr. Fauci did. And
Yeah.
so he then went around Barack Obama's cancellation of that research, and he funded it through a place called the Eco Health Alliance. So it was like a third party. And then they gave the money to the Wuhan Institute. And then he lied to Congress twice about funding gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute. And I know that because the NIH said he lied. So then the next lie was that the virus was deadly. The next lie was that masks would stop it. The next lie was that the vaccine would stop the transmission and contraction of the virus. And if you got the vaccine, you could take your mask off and go about, and you didn't have to. Those were all lies, and they always knew they were lies. They didn't get it wrong. They didn't get it. They were lying. And how the reason I know they were lying, because they admitted in front of the European Union testimony, one of the executives at Pfizer admitted they never even tested to see if it stopped transmission. Now, my guess is they did, and they knew it wouldn't stop transmission, so they just erased that data, because they've been erasing data, and then they didn't want to release the data on their vaccine trials for 75 years. And still, comedians didn't have a question about it. Still, late night talk show hosts made you seem like an idiot if you were taking horse goo, which is ivermectin. Again, nobody's upset that they were lied about about ivermectin. Ivermectin, they often say that a lie is concealed by two truths. And the truth about ivermectin was that it was for horses. Well, it is.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. But the lie was that it wasn't for humans. It is. It's a human medicine. In fact, it's a wonder drug that has saved billions of lives, not millions, billions of lives. And it's on the WHO list of essential medicines. And it won the Nobel Prize for Human Medicine. Now, Jimmy Kimmel and Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow will never tell you that. But they will keep calling you some kind of crazy white supremacist, redneck, idiot conspiracy theorist if you want to take a miracle drug that has saved billions of lives. And now the FDA had to admit in open court, because of a lawsuit, that of course doctors are allowed to prescribe it. Well, they weren't allowed to prescribe it. Doctors got banned from prescribing it. My own doctor did. And lots of doctors had their licenses threatened. So, and they passed a law in California that said if a doctor prescribes anything that the CDC and the FDA doesn't say is okay for COVID, they'll lose your license. So that goes against medical practice, because medical practice is if a drug is approved for use by the FDA, then a doctor can prescribe it for anything else. That's called off-label. So, like when what did they call Viagra was originally a heart medicine, and then they figured out it gave you boners, and so doctors started prescribing it for that. So you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to.
Guys loved it.
That's right. And so still today, you see those comedians on their specials shaming people for not following orders, shaming people for trying to get informed about it. And so it really breaks my heart about the comedy community, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it. It's a real heartbreaker for me, Keith. I'm not kidding. I was always proud to be a comedian. Tommy Smothers, there's a documentary on PBS about comedy, and I'll never forget Tommy Smothers said, they famously lost their show when it was the most popular show on TV because they didn't follow orders and they questioned the status quo. And they asked him about, how do you know a real comedian? And he said, a real comedian is someone, if you tell them to do something, they go and do the opposite. That's a real comedian.
Oh, no, definitely. Yeah.
And so I felt like most comedians failed comedy, and they weren't doing comedy. If you're telling people, please don't do your own research, you're not doing stand-up comedy, you're doing propaganda, and you should go fucking sell cars.
No, yeah, definitely. And I believe when the pandemic happened, I believe comedy changed in a way. And also I lost my best friend to cancer, but I blame it on the pandemic because while we were, he couldn't get proper treatment because of the hospitals, you know what I mean? And I feel like that kind of just screwed everything up. You know what I mean?
Every screwed up is putting it mildly, right?
Yeah. So like I feel like that was not fair because that losing him changed my entire comedy career because I used to tour with him and stuff. And he was my best friend for 9 years. I wrote on his show, and now it's like I'm lost now. You know what I mean? Like I don't know where I'm going in comedy.
I,
So
I feel for you, brother.
yeah. But hey, I wanted to ask you some questions. One, how cool was it to interview Robert Kennedy?
So it was well, I didn't know much about RFK Jr. and I believed the propaganda that he was some kind of crazy anti-vaxxer, anti-science guy. And then, of course, COVID happened, and I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing because they did to me and anybody else who had a legitimate question about the lies they were telling. They did that to me, what they did to him. And I'm like, oh, so maybe he's not lying. And then I read his book about Fauci, the real Dr. Fauci, and I realized that, of course, they were demonizing this guy, and he was right about big pharma, and he's right to have legitimate questions about the vaccines and that they aren't really safety tested correctly, and they're not. And
Yeah.
now people know it. Some people know it, but most people don't want to know this because that their whole worldview would have to change, and they would have to realize that they've been lied to by Rachel Maddow, Anderson Cooper, Sean Hannity. They've been lied to by ABC, NBC. They've been lied to by the president. They've been lied to by Dr. Been lied to by everybody they think is against Trump. They've been lied to by them.
Yeah.
And so that they just can't, remember when they would say, hey, if you got the vaccine, it stops the virus dead. Now, everybody said that.
Everyone did, yeah.
Everyone said that from Dr. Fauci to Rachel Maddow to the president of the United States and everybody in between. Now, that was a lie. It was always a lie. And so now the new lie is they never said it would stop the transmission of the virus or you getting the virus. They just said it would lessen your symptoms. And then when someone tells me
That's not true either.
I show them a video, a 10-minute video of everybody from Dr. Fauci to Rachel Maddow to Joe Biden saying the exact opposite, saying that it will stop. And then they go, oh, well, they just got it wrong. No, you told me they never said that. So someone told you they never said that, which is a lie. And then you repeated that lie and you're not pissed off that someone lied to you that they said they never said that. They didn't say they got it wrong. They said they never fucking said that. And so that's the cognitive dissonance. It's like talking to flat earthers or people who don't believe in evolution or Darwinism, that it's like they're impenetrable to accurate information. And unfortunately, most of those people I'm talking about are comedians.
Yeah.
So there's a crisis. There's an unseen, untalked about crisis in comedy, and it's how comedians became propagandists and bullshitters and authoritarian and rule enforcers and narrative enforcers of the establishment instead of being what they're supposed to be, which is skeptics and cynics and revealers of the lies of government. So that's a real problem. It's still happening in comedy, by the way. So it's a real. So I'm
100% it's happening.
I'm proud of myself in comedy. I'm proud of Joe Rogan in comedy. And there's not many other fucking people who are telling. And I'm proud of Kurt Metzger in comedy, and maybe a handful of other guys that I know of personally who question the COVID narrative. Not many, and they're still not doing it. And now when I see those comedians who wag their fingers at their own crowds, shaming them for reading and trying to get informed about an experimental gene therapy they're being forced to take, when I see them now, they're not talking about how they got it wrong. They're not talking about how they got lied to and how they're pissed off for being lied to and how we all were dupes and how we all went along with this scam. They're not, you know what they're talking about now? They're talking about dating. I'm not fucking shitting you. They're talking about dating.
Yeah.
One of the biggest asshole shamers was Dana Gould, right? We all know Dana Gould. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
Dana Gould was one of those guys who shamed people for not wanting to take an experimental gene therapy that they didn't know anything about, and there was no long-term studies. And now I go see Dana Gould do comedy, and he's literally talking about fucking dating. Not talking about, not apologizing for being an asshole, not apologizing for shaming people for having healthy skepticism, for being a propagandist and going along with being an establishment narrative enforcer. No, he's literally talking about dating. That's
Yeah.
called someone with no fucking courage, no character, and no integrity. And unfortunately, there's lots of comedians like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel though, I also feel dating is one of those subjects that every comic talks about. I mean, I'm not going to be hypocritical. I have dating material, but I feel that's just one of those subjects they all talk about. You know what I mean?
I got no, you can make a joke about anything if it's original, if you have an original twist on it. If
Yeah.
you have an original, that's fine. But to to go back to talking about, it could be like what I say about those comedians is it could be 1943 Germany and be like, hey, dating's wild, huh? That's a little ridiculous. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, we're right now, there's almost 2 nuclear wars starting. There's another bogus war in Ukraine that's based on complete lies, which is called Russiagate, which the Durham report revealed was a complete hoax from start to finish. Again, nobody knows what the Durham report is because the fucking bought media is never going to tell you what it is. It was an investigation by the Justice Department about the origins of Russiagate, and it turned out it came from the DNC, the Clinton campaign, the FBI, and the CIA, and Barack Obama knew that it was a hoax.
Yeah.
He knew. And how do I know that, Barack Obama? Because the FBI, head of the FBI, said so in Congress, in open testimony in Congress. So again, that's another fail on comedy. So apparently, what I think about is how all those. I heard a lot of comedians talk negatively about George Carlin in the last years of his life, talking about how he's just angry now and he's not funny anymore. And those guys are full of shit. George Carlin got better and better as he got older because he told more truths and more truths, and those people couldn't fucking take it, and that's why they're bad comedians.
Yeah, I'm assuming George Carlin played a big role in your comedy.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. He was always what I strive to, if George Carlin walked into a comedy club and saw me doing my act, I would want him to like it. And that was always in the back of my head. And another thing was if I walked into a comedy club and I saw me on stage, would I be proud? Would I like it? Would I want to be like that guy? So that's how I approach my stand-up comedy now. When I started, I used to compete against other comedians. I would always, am I better than him? Or is he better than me? Or him, who's getting better gigs?
I was the same way too when I started. Yeah.
And then I started to realize I don't know who said it, but someone said it. And he said, amateur comedians compete against other comedians. Professional comedians compete against their former self. And that really put a light bulb up in my head. And that's how I've approached it ever since. And I'm like, am I growing as a comedian? Am I a little bit better than I was 6 months ago or a year ago? Am I still growing? Am I still developing? Am I still finding new things? And am I proud of it? If I didn't know me and I walked into a comedy club and I saw me doing my act, would I be proud of that? I think that's a great, and so that's the litmus test I use. It's me, it's not anybody else.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, I'm gonna consider them specials, even though some of them are specials and albums, but out of all the ones you've done, like Really and Brain Surgery and Citizen Jimmy, which one are you most proud
of? It's hard to say because they were all at different stages in my career. When I listen to It's Not Brain Surgery, I kind of cringe actually a little bit at some of it.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't have my voice yet. I was still finding myself. Even though I'd been doing comedy for about 10 years at that point, I still hadn't made the breakthrough, and that didn't happen until about 2003. And I was doing the marijuana logs, and a couple other things happened, and I smoked pot before I went on stage one night at a comedy club because I didn't want to go back to that comedy club because they wouldn't turn on the air conditioning. And I never smoked pot before I went on stage because I respected the craft, and I didn't want to go on stage and do a bad job because I was high, and then have people go, Jimmy Dore is fucking on drugs on stage,
Uh,
and I wanted to protect my reputation. And so I didn't care about this club because they were assholes, and they didn't give a fuck about the show either. And they were just, some comedy club owners are get a kick out of presenting art to people, and some comedy club owners they're just selling chicken wings and booze, right? And so it
yeah,
was one of those places, and all they cared about. And so I didn't want to come back, and that was the first time in my life I decided I don't want to come back to a club. And so I smoked pot before I went on stage, and it was really it opened up a lot of things for me. All the old jokes became new again. My performance really became much looser. I used to be very stiff, like Dennis Miller on stage, and then I just became more myself, and I wasn't doing an impression of another comedian that I wanted to be like. I found out what I was really like, and I really have to chalk that up to smoking pot before I went on stage, and I did that for probably the next 5 years, and then I stopped because I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need to
yeah,
get I didn't even wanted to get to that place that I needed to be on stage. And so I stopped doing that. So now I don't smoke pot before I go on stage anymore. And but that's how that happened. And so I'm most proud of my most recent special, because I think it's my best work ever. And it's it's called COVID Lies Are Funny. And it's nonstop challenging the status quo, nonstop challenging the establishment lies, and making it funny. And I'm really the most proud of that special.
yeah. I filmed my second special on Friday at the Rec Room, which you were just at, and I'm very proud of the material, but I got heckled the whole time, so I have to refilm it. And I'm
Okay.
like, but the positive is it is at least I have it on tape where I could polish it better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do like that, but it was just such a bummer because you've been when you work so hard for
Yeah.
something, and it's like this stupid bitch is just ruining it. But but yeah, and then like podcasting, like I'm not gonna say you were the first, but you were one of the first people to have a podcast. You did with Todd Glass. You had comedy, and I think it was called Comedy and Everything Else.
That's it.
And then now you're doing your Jimmy Dore show. So when you first started doing that, did you know like the advantages it would come to? Because now like podcasting, in my opinion, is probably better than doing talk shows. You know what I mean?
Much. I mean, yeah, late night talk shows are a big waste of time. As
Yeah.
for
But
stand up,
back in the day, that was what everyone wanted to do. You know?
that was all there was, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody was trying to get. I remember I was told a story that in the 90s, if someone who was it who told me this? I can't think of his name, but he said, when I would do a national TV spot like a Letterman or something like that, he goes, I would get a $5,000 bonus that week at the club.
Yeah.
That's over. I never got that. And so it doesn't. It's so when I started doing that podcast, it was just thrilling to us. We were always guests on radio shows. When you go out and do the road, you have to do radio shows to promote the club and promote your shows. And so oftentimes I remember when I was touring, I would do 3, 4, 5 radio shows in a week. And it was hard. You're trying to be funny on the radio with people you never met before, and they're always interrupting you and stuff like that. And so it was hard. So it was so I always wanted to do my own radio show. And so that's kind of how I looked at doing that podcast with Todd Glass and Steph Zamorano, that we were doing our own radio show. And it was just thrilling to hear it ourselves, just to hear me back doing on a recording, talking like we're on a radio show, being funny, doing bits. And we did about 100, and I don't know. Well, with Todd, we did 60 episodes, and then Todd left, and then we did another probably, I don't know, 70 or 80. And then I just got more interested in doing the Jimmy Dore Show. it became a pain in my ass to set up interviews with people, because then by that time everybody had started doing a podcast,
Yeah.
and then it was, I'm not good at, I'm not a good at getting numbers and dates and not the minutia. I'm not a details orientated guy, put it that way. And it was just hard to book guests. It just became a pain in my ass. And so I got a radio show in the meantime, an actual radio show at KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles. And so then I just put my focus into doing that show, and that had a more political bent, which that then led to Citizen Jimmy, which was my first hour comedy special on Comedy Central. And I have to tell you that it was chosen best of the year by iTunes and Punchline Magazine. And the reason I tell you that, Keith, because if I don't, fucking nobody will. And so I'm really proud of that. And then I just kept doing, I did that radio show all the way up until maybe a year or two ago, on KPFK Los Angeles. So yeah, and now the thing is podcast. I mean, Joe Rogan's show was a podcast, and it's the number one show in the world, right? And
Yeah.
And he's 11, 12 times bigger than CNN, somebody like that. And me going on his show, I was lucky enough to do his show twice, was all the TV appearances I've done couldn't compare to one spot on Joe Rogan, right? So, I mean, and I did NBC 5 times, I did CBS 3 times, I did NBC twice. So I've been on ABC twice. I did NBC at least 5, 6, 7 times. So you can put all those together and they don't add up to one Joe Rogan, not even half of it. So yeah, podcasts are where it's at. Now I have my own YouTube podcast, which is also an audio podcast available on iTunes. But and now I have 1.2 million subscribers. And as soon as I started doing my show, my audio podcast was pretty popular. It would get 50,000 downloads. I think that's pretty popular for an audio podcast.
Yeah.
But it never really resulted in ticket sales. But as soon as I started doing my show on YouTube, boom, I immediately started selling tickets and playing theaters. And I've been doing that since 2017.
Maybe that's what I should do, because like my listener rate on the audio is probably the same of 50,000. I mean, you said you think it's good. I don't think it's good, but I think it's just okay because everyone has a podcast. But maybe if I did a video YouTube thing, that would help me with ticket sales, because I can't sell tickets to save my life.
There's no better delivery system than YouTube. So I tell everybody, if you're doing whatever you're doing and releasing it to the public, put a camera in front of you and put it up on YouTube, because it's the most effective delivery system that there is. It's better than iTunes. It's better than Spotify. It's better than everything. There's nothing like YouTube. And, I get 18 million views a month on YouTube, and would never get that if I was just doing an audio podcast. So I encourage everybody to put their stuff on YouTube. I'm always surprised when people don't. It's free, and it's an unbelievable platform. There's no platform like it. They're much better than everybody. And as much as I hate the censorship from YouTube, I still use it. I'm on Rumble now too, and my views on Rumble have been doing pretty good, actually. I get about anywhere between 10, 40,000 views per video, and I drop 5 videos a day. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I encourage you to do YouTube.
So I just have 3 more questions. I want to respect your time, but I wanted to know, how long did it take you to write Your Country's Just Not Into You?
It took me okay. So here's how. So that I wrote a book. I think that was in 2014 or 2015. And my manager told me, like, I had that hour special and it got awards, and I didn't get any TV deals, right? I couldn't believe it, right? I think it was because I was bad at meetings. When I would go in meetings, I didn't try to be funny or personal, because I didn't want to seem needy. And that's stupid. I should have just went in and been funny and been personable and made friends with the people. And I didn't. And So then my manager told me, he said, Jimmy, if you write a book, you're going to get some meetings. I go, really? He goes, that's my experience. If you write a book, that it sends out a buzz and people want to have a meeting with you. And he said, so write a book. He said, and he goes, write a book proposal. And he goes, I'll get you a book deal. So I didn't know how to do that. I had to look it up, how to write a book proposal. And I did. And it's like, you have to write like a couple of chapters. It was like, I think it would end up like 40 pages or so I had to submit. And you have to give an outline. There's things. Anyway, he got me a deal. He got me a book deal with Running Press, $20,000 advance. And at that time in my life, that was the most money I'd ever been paid for anything except my hours Comedy Central special. And so I was real excited, but I was also very nervous because I never written a book before. And so I waited till a month before it was due to start writing it. And I got up every day at 8 a.m. and I would go to Starbucks and I would just start writing and putting it together and putting the jokes in there. So it was kind of a representation of the Jimmy Dore Show, which is a political comedy show. So it was like a book representation of that show. I would make fun of people on television and stuff like, in the news business. And so he got me that. So it took me about a month to write it. And that's the hardest way to write a book. I don't recommend it. My heart wasn't in it. I was only doing it for another reason. And so it caused me a lot of physical angst. Like I broke out in hives on my back, and I had to get medical treatment for it, because that's not how you're supposed to do something artistic just for a goal. It was just so I could get a TV show. And that's the exact wrong reason to write a book. But I still think it's funny. I'm still proud of it. And at that moment in time, it was a pretty funny book. I liked it.
Yeah. It's funny that you said it probably took you a month, because I remember Norm, when he was writing his book, he didn't really actually write it, and it took him like a month just to finish it. Like he canceled all his dates for like 1 month, and that's how it took to get his book. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool how, like, I think comics can actually do that really fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love Norm. What a great guy.
Yeah, he was great. And then the second question I had for you is, when you first started comedy, because I don't know, because I wasn't alive back then, but nowadays it seems like a lot of comics try and help each other. I was wondering, like, back in the day, was it like that, or was it people bringing each other down because of the comedy bloom?
No, I think, there was a lot of help. Comedians would, before the internet, people would, hey, I got a gig here. You should call this booker. Here's another booker here. There's a new club opening here. You should call this guy. And then, of course, comedians always helping you with tags and writing and things like that. So, yeah, there was a camaraderie, I think, but, there was always certain people trying to tear people down, what have you. But yeah, it was I got a lot of help from comedians, put it that way.
All right. And then my last question for you, Jimmy, is if you could go in a time machine and talk to a younger version of yourself, it could be tomorrow or yesterday, what advice would you tell yourself what you know now?
My advice if I was going to talk to Jimmy Dore, who was just starting comedy, my advice would be, don't worry. Don't worry about anything. Just go and have fun and enjoy the moment. And because no matter how it goes, it's going to work out. That would be I spent so much time worrying.
Yeah.
So much wasted anxiety, so much wasted time. And just about career and things like that. It's just a waste of time. And I would tell myself, don't do that. That would be my advice, I guess.
I'm so glad you said that, and you didn't say, don't do Keith Reza's podcast. Jimmy, where can the folks at home follow and support you at?
JimmyDore.com. That's DORE, JimmyDore.com. I got a lot of dates coming up. Probably coming to a town near you, and hope to see you soon.
All right, Jimmy, thank you so much for taking time to talk with me. It really meant a lot to me and it helped me out a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was the show with Jimmy Dore. Subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, and we'll see you next week.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.